Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me here on Instant Classics for a little late night yap session. Hope this video finds you in good health and high spirits. I'm here because I want to do a little talking about Tom King's run on Batman. I'm working right now on a more like structured edited video on Batman Dark Patterns that's running right now. Issue 7 is coming out tomorrow. Give you some idea of when this is coming out. And I just finished earlier this week reading for the first time Tom King's entire run on Batman. Tom King, to me, one of the guys that got me back into reading American comic books. A little background: I read a lot of comics when I was in high school, kind of fell out of love with the medium, had some, I don't know, I had other stuff going on, you could say, but I got back into it because I was looking at a couple books that I had read when I was younger, kind of getting reinterested, and a friend told me I was reading like Hush and like Long Halloween, like great books for sure, old standards that everyone's read a million times. And I was wanting to read something new. I was showing up to work with comic books, the little DC compact classics that they make. I was showing up with those in my backpack and reading them on break. And I worked with this one bartender at the time who was like a huge comic fan. And he was like, okay, dude, you want to read something you're going to love? Grab this book, Mr. Miracle by Tom King. And Mr. Miracle, when I was younger, was a character that I loved the look of, I loved the vibe of. You know, whenever he would show up in a Justice League comic or something that I was reading, it was always a high point. I thought he was really cool, but I hadn't ever gone into the character's like published works, right? Or any runs or comics that he was on. Didn't know much about the like Dark Side, Apocalypse, all the God stuff that was going on that he was a part of, stuff with his brother Orion. So at the time, totally blind to a lot of that. I pick up this book, Mr. Miracle, and instant obsession. I've got, I think, 3 copies of it back here. Read the book at like a really low, weird period that I was going through. A hurricane had hit an area that I was living in, Asheville, and I spent about a month with no water, no power, limited access to a lot of resources. And in that time, I got my hands on the Mr. Miracle book. There was a Barnes& and Noble open about 10 miles from where I was living. Used some of my gas, went over there, picked up this deluxe edition, and read it in like a sitting. And then I did it again, and then I did it again, and it really broke through for me in a meaningful way. His book Supergirl, Last Daughter of Krypton, or Woman of Tomorrow, excuse me. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, similar story. Read it, got it as soon as I could get my hands on it. Life was kind of getting back to normal-ish after that, and read it a few times. Apologies to any family members of mine. You guys all got copies of Supergirl for Christmas. It was my go-to gift. Uh, I just fell in love with King. I was like, everyone needs to read this. Everyone needs to listen to me talk about this. And everyone in my circle had to do so for a while. But I held off. I was reading, any of his collected, like, short run series, limited stuff. I totally got onto all of it. Had stayed away from his run on Batman. Now I was reading, like I said, a lot of Batman at the time, a lot of the classics. I went through Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's run on the book, which was one that I adored when I was growing up. You got to think, when I was in high school, he was getting to the end of his run, and everywhere you went, Court of Owls, right? That was like the hot book on shelves. Even a year or two after it had come out, they were selling the like deluxe editions that had the owl mask on it. They were having the Joker edition of Death of the Family, where like his face mask thing that he had stapled on was part of the packaging. So I loved that, and that was the last Batman that I had read because, like I said, I kind of fell out of love. So missed Tom King entirely. Didn't read his Batman run when I was getting back into comics, when I was getting into Tom King, when I was getting really deep into Batman books, because it is pretty much universally reviled, at least online and from people that I knew and I talked to, be it like friends of mine or people that worked at comic shops. They were like, dude, self-indulgent drivel, its pacing is unbearable, it's hardly a Batman book. Most of it is just like romance that goes nowhere. There's bad editorial mishandling. The run was interrupted several times by things outside of his control and that he didn't want. I don't want to get too bogged down in the discourse, but yeah, to call it divisive would be a lie. It's not divisive, it is not liked. So I kind of steered clear of it. I wanted to retain this image that I had of King as a writer and of Batman as this mythological figure that I was spending more and more time with and really falling deeply in love with any stories about him. So I was like, let me not do the Tom King Batman thing. One, it's 85 issues, so that's going to take more time than I really want to devote to anything right now. And I was trying to reestablish a base with what I was reading. So I was trying to knock out a lot of like 20, 40 issue runs just to be like, yeah, I kind of know what's happening and I've got a wider breadth of knowledge, excuse me, so I can have these conversations about characters that I hadn't read or works that I hadn't really engaged with. And I was like, this is not a priority. Let me stay happy with Mr. King, stay happy with the Bat, and learn more. And I don't know what really changed, but at the start of this month, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to sit and read it. I've got all these books digitally anyways. I'm going back through Brubaker's Captain America run. I'm reading, I'm on a reread of Tom Taylor's Nightwing, which has a lot to do with this book. And I said, screw it, let's try a couple issues. So I read the first arc, I Am Gotham, and I think, oh my god, this is really good. And then I read the second little mini arc, this event comic, Night of the Monster Men, and it's a dumpster fire, garbage, shit tier comic. Wouldn't read it again if you paid me. That's a lie, I would. You wouldn't have to pay me much. Reading comics is very easy, and there are lower stakes things, harder ways to earn money. I'd read it again. I'd bitch about it, though. I would have something to say. Night of the Monster Men is straight up garbage, has none of King's DNA, has none of what... I mean, look, event comics are what they are, and it's like 4 issues. Whatever. I got through it. So I'm sitting here, and I'm thinking, do I want to keep reading this? I liked I Am Gotham, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm just setting the stage. I liked I Am Gotham, hated Night of the Monster Men. Do I want to do this? And I was looking online, and everyone was like, yeah, this book sucks. Tom King totally fumbled. But everyone was kind of supporting one book, right? One issue, one part of the run. And that was this. Batman Elmer Fudd. Let me get this in screen. Batman Elmer Fudd, a one-issue little side story. Porky Pig. So, okay. One-issue little side story. Tom King, illustrated by the great Lee Weeks. It's a weird pairing. It's absolutely brilliant. The way I understand it, DC at the time, because, they're part of the Warner family, and Warner owns Looney Tunes, XYZ, DC at the time was doing these crossover comic books with Looney Tunes characters. And I think that this had started with a punchline. I remember reading about it, but I won't bore you guys. Or a joke that was made by King. And it comes to fruition. This book, Batman Elmer Fudd, is absolutely brilliant and beautiful and weird and wildly intelligent. It sees Looney Tunes characters reimagined as like brick and mortar, tooth and nail, like Gothamites, right? And Porky Pig, or a humanized version of him, is running a little bar called Porky's. And you're kind of see the character that you spend time with and is your point of view in the story is not Batman. It is Elmer Fudd as like a hard-boiled detective. It turns out they both loved the same woman. They both thought she was dead. Bugs Bunny's involved. Anyways, I read this book and I'm taken with its wit, with its intelligence, with its creativity, with its ability to balance the uber serious, oppressive nature of Gotham City and of murder and lost love and crime and, Batman and stuff with this like jubilant, just fun. And I say, okay, I'm gonna go back to it. Pick up I Am Suicide. Everything from there is unbelievable. So, I'm already yapping. I kind of want to go into it. Every issue, this is issues 1 through 85 of Batman, from 2015 till I believe 2019, could be 2020. every single issue in this run, I found there to be at least one thing of great creative brilliance or importance. There were ideas left and right, ideas everywhere. Maybe more ideas than King could properly handle. I'm a longtime Berserk fan. I'm a longtime Hunter x Hunter fan. I'm a longtime One Piece fan. So I know the damage that reading an ongoing series week to week or month to month can have. And I can imagine that the ongoing reading of Tom King's Batman while it was being published and serialized was probably less than tremendous, right? I can see some of the points being a slog to get through, where you're like, I just want to see the knight hit people. Doesn't happen for a lot of this, and I'll say a lot of those issues, if you're considering reading this, are mitigated by the fact that you can just fly through it, right? If there's something that you're not totally gelling with, I think I wasn't the biggest fan of the I Am Bane story. Took me 45 minutes to read, right? And again, each of those issues had some nugget of interest or brilliance. But anyways, I can see how the month-to-month reading would damage this. Having it all collected, you are able to access this ongoing narrative that is so full of like little continuations, little motifs, little themes that King brings back again and again. And if you're a Tom King fan, if you like the things that I like in his books, which is one, he's a freaking bleeding heart. The dude is just an exposed nerve. Like so many of my favorite filmmakers or musicians, he is just like, it's all out there, right? And the story, the structure very much bends to the things that he wants to talk about, not the other way around, right? Anything that he wants to say about love, about the nature of the weight of expectation, the importance of a vow, the meaning of a word, right? These are things that he explores a lot in this Batman book. He kind of makes the character work for him and not the other way around. And I can see that being an issue for some people. He does something in this book that I kind of liken to one of my favorite films, and I'm going to bring it up here real quick. It's Martin Scorsese's The Last Temptation of Christ, where he does something with the bat, where he kind of uses this character and this mythology and this history to work out his own relationship with the medium, right? Tom King's Batman is as much a book about Tom King and the way he sees comic books and about the way he sees these figures that we have, you know, going on soon. I guess like 80 years of story. He deals with that story and the way that it impacts his life and the way that he kind of sees the world through these people. He talks about he makes it his. He makes it his own personal battle and conversation. And Mr. Scorsese does the same thing when kind of confronting his relationship with Catholicism, his relationship with Christ. This is a film that when it came out, Mr. Scorsese was met with a huge deal of backlash from the Catholic Church. I could be misremembering, but I believe that there were talks of excommunication. That may have been a thing that happened, but Catholics were really unhappy with how he portrayed Jesus Christ, which is that he shows him in this film as a man, right? A man who is not perfect, who is prone to moments of lust, of arrogance, of human folly, right? He's God, clearly, but he's not just God. He's also a man. And Scorsese makes him very vulnerable. And it's something that people give him flack for. They say, well, you know, that's not who he is in our religion. That's not how we view him. He's who we model ourselves after, so don't show him having these low points. The film is called The Last Temptation. It's very much about temptation. And it gets him in a lot of trouble. And I think that this happens as well with Tom King's Batman. Not to say that other writers hadn't done this. Grant Morrison, his run on Batman, very famously is a lot of him contending with the mythology about making sense of decades of stories that don't really capitulate to one another, that don't really have a clean way of being interlocutors. How is he, you know, joking and colorful in the 60s, and he's out here making puns and goofing around with Robin, and then a mere 10 years later 15 years later, people are being beat to death with crowbars. We're having Frank Miller's interpretation of the character. Everything's getting darker than the 90s. It's big buff guys. We gotta break the bat. All that so Morrison takes his character and makes him less of like an individual and more of his outlet for dealing with this thing that has a huge impact on his life. And for Morrison, that results in this idea of the Bat God, right? This individual that has the perfect foresight, who has been many things at many different times and will continue to be many things, and is a kind of chimeric, being made up of many different individual visions, right? His Batman is the product of every writer and every reader that has ever spent time with the Bat, as opposed to being Bruce Wayne. We don't get a lot of Bruce in Morrison's run. And Tom King, it's kind of the opposite. He goes uber specific into the Bruce of it all, right? Into the human. And King is looking at this mythological figure. Oh, my cat is sneezing. And instead of making him this infallible Bat God, well, he's a guy that's making mistakes pretty much at every turn, and is dealing less with how do I stop the Joker or save Gotham or reconcile my role in this ongoing war on crime and lines that I can cross and can't cross, to a guy who's like, I do this because I'm scared and I have to kind of keep doing it, and I maybe don't want to, but I need to. And this element of love is this ongoing, like, very continuous thread. And this question of what is the Batman, and these elements all kind of come together, where in seeking love, he and the people around him, he being Bruce, have to contend with the fact that a happy Batman may not be able to be Batman. So you're spending a lot more time with this individual that isn't fully Batman because he doesn't know if he can or wants to be anymore. And he keeps doing the right things. He keeps trying, but he's finding time for himself as well. And it leaves him vulnerable to the second great breaking of the Bat, right? First being in Nightfall, Bruce getting his back broken by Bane, who figures him out. This time also by Bane, but in a way that destroys his emotionality, in his wholeness, in his oneness, in his pursuit of what he wants. And it's really quite fascinating. It's a very different look at the character. The book opens with this arc, I Am Gotham. And in its opening pages, a giant jumbo jet turbine, is flying through Gotham, falling into Gotham on its way down. And there's no way to stop it. Some people are going to die. It's going to make impact. And we pick up kind of in the middle of this crisis, and Batman's figuring out, what do I do? He's on the phone with Alfred. He keeps doing the impossible, right? He goes from the ground to up on the back of the plane. He's almost putting it in stirrups, right? He sequesters the plane and is flying it in this crazy wild way. You almost have to read it. And he's making these minute moment-to-moment calculations. It's perfect, down to the decimal point, right? Infinitesimal odds. And however you say the word. He's figuring these things out, and he realizes, I can save these people, I can get this thing in the Gotham River, but I'm toast. And the first kind of big question that he has to contend with, and that he asks Alfred, is, I'm going to die. Is this a good death? Have I had a good life? And Alfred's like, you've had a great life, and I'm proud of you, and your parents would be proud of you. Batman's relationship, or Bruce's relationship, with his parents, the Waynes, is something that's focused on really heavily too. And that love. And the plane gets saved. Bruce doesn't die in the river. He doesn't die in the wreckage, because the plane gets saved by Mr. Gotham, Gotham Boy, whatever. He's not in the book very long. And Gotham Girl, who we do see throughout this whole thing. Two superpowered individuals that move and act and can fly and punch and shoot laser beams like Superman, but have the ethos of Batman. Well, this is due to the fact that when they were children, they're actually saved by Bruce in a way where, someone could have intervened in Crime Alley when his parents were shot following them watching Zorro. It's like if someone had been there and he saves them and they both become, well, him more than her, both of the children become like devoted to this idea of Batman and replicating what he's doing and being forces of good in Gotham. So they pick up his mantle. It's another thing he has to contend with. When they realize that they can't save the city, they're kind of broken. They go off the deep end. They're abusing drugs, which is something we don't find out till later. Their powers come at great personal expense. And it's this jumping off point that leads to a lot of these traps that the Bat finds himself in this book about his legacy, his power, the cost of happiness, and how that goes up against the value of a human life. If you do things to preserve yourself, is that going to result in the lack of preservation of another? So this is kind of the jumping off point. And I won't get into every arc here. Who's got the time for it, right? Not you, certainly not I. But each of the arcs in here has conversations like these, and they build off each other in really beautiful ways. Again, Night of the Monster Men, I think you could pretend that this isn't even a thing, right? This is early in the DC Rebirth era, and I think they just needed a little Bat Family book to tie everything together and get a few series off the ground, right? So ignore this. Next, we're on to I Am Suicide. Batman launches a kind of Black Ops, off the books suicide mission into the island that is owned and run by Bane. Bane has kidnapped the Psycho Pirate, a character that I really love, who is this villain that can control, with this mask and these powers that he has, he can control the emotions of others. And he's a character that's been shown in other books. I think Jeff Johns did really great work with him back in the day, for example. But he's been shown to be this like end-level threat in the right hands. And Batman needs him, and Bane has him captured. Batman needs him because he's trying to kind of fix the heart and soul and mind of Gotham Girl following the, hey, full spoilers for the run, following the death of her brother at the hands of the Bat and the Justice League. And she's broken after this. She becomes small and scared, and the Psycho Pirate had locked her in a position of anxiety and near constant dread. So following this, the Psycho Pirate gets kidnapped by Bane. Bane is using him to kind of wean himself off of the venom that he's been using and find peace and happiness and comfort. While Batman kind of looks the other way at this. Again, we see an emotional conversation, a sacrifice. Bane, upon being confronted by Batman, says, just leave this place. I am happy. I am at peace. I don't need to hurt anyone anymore. I'm not coming to kill you. I'm not coming to destroy Gotham. Leave me the pirate. Let me do my thing, and I'll let you live. Right? Emotional appeal to the Bat. And the Bat says, I'm here. I'm going to take the pirate. I need him for something, and I will have him. You'll give him to me, or I will break your damn back. And this is a mantra that kind of gets repeated over and over again. These two have an obsession with breakage, right? With inflicting this very specific pain on each other that is a callback to the beginning of their relationship, to this iconic moment in comic book history. But there's this repeated mantra, I will break your damn back, over and over again. Point being, Batman has the choice here to walk away, to sacrifice one individual's happiness and comfort, that individual being Bane, or to leave him be, to sacrifice the comfort of Gotham Girl to allow Bane to continue to exist in the peace that he's found himself in. But he can't do it because he places the weight of Gotham Girl's distress on himself. So he would rather get the pirate back and face whatever wrath he will incur from Bane, just to right the mistake that he views himself as having made. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. We get a series of scraps between the two of them. And this is kind of the most Batman that the book ever feels, save for maybe the last arc. Excuse me, I'm going to hit the Liquid Death real quick. The last arc, City of Bane, kind of goes full Bat comic again in a really crazy and I found pleasant way. Very exciting read. But we get a big stretch in the middle of this book where you're spending very little time with Batman and more time with Bruce. with this romance that is this thing that's been an ongoing element of all Bat stories, right, is his love for Catwoman. Unrequited wouldn't quite be the right word because they love each other, but they're powerless to do anything about it, right? The Bat and the Cat, they're two individuals on different sides of the law with different goals, dreams, desires, and they're both aware of the fact that they can't really engage with each other on the way that they really desire because it would mean an end to both of them, or at least the things that they are, the Bat and the Cat. If they were to be Bruce and Selina, what happens to the other two, right? What happens to the people that the Batman needs to protect? What happens to the life and the individuality and the freedom that Selina holds so dear? So you spend a lot of time in the middle of this book going back and forth with their relationship, spending time with the two of them in love together, and it's joyous. And it's very much, again, not really a Batman comic, but that's okay because it's a Tom King comic, and baby, few things in life hit as hard as a Tom King comic book, especially if you're a guy like me who, again, exposed nerve, man. Just show me that emotion, show me that humanity, and I am absolutely going to be sated and satisfied. So you're spending this time with them. They are going on dates as only they could. They are dealing with arguments as only they could, right? All super powered. We see them spending time in the orbit of Superman and of Wonder Woman, of Lois Lane. And there's one story that I kind of want to pull on here for a second because it's stuck with me a lot. Again, a lot of these stories, by the way, I'll say are 2 to 3 issues, some of them 1 issue, all have kind of interesting framing mechanics. They're shown visually in different ways. This series is a revolving door of a lot of different artists. Most importantly among them are Janine and Lee Weeks, obviously being the really big one. Whenever he's involved with the book, you know that you're in for some top tier content. But what you're getting in this 1 issue that I really love, there's a character called the Gentleman. And he's this DC Comics character where he lives in this kind of little like side pocket world where time moves very differently, right? And there's this endless horde that is making its way to the area, the boundary between our reality, or the DC Multiverse's reality, right? And the world that they live in. So this guy, the Gentleman, kind of keeps a constant vigil at this borderline. And his job is to keep the horde back. He fights all day, rests a little bit at night, gets up and does it again. Now, we don't know exactly how long he does this for. We don't know what the disparity of time is. But in these few issues that I'm poking at here, Wonder Woman shows up to Bruce. This is, I think, issues 3 and 4 of the friendship arc, which is amazing. The first 2 are Bruce and Clark Kent going to the state fair with Lois and Selina, and it's really fun, really beautiful, light, breezy, getting to see these guys interact as friends and not just, you know, superheroes beating up monsters. It's kind of lovely and kind of special and kind of something I wish we had a lot more of. I'm getting on a tangent, but it does remind me of the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four issue where Ben Grimm is turned back into a human for a little while when the Future Foundation finds out that he can be a human for like 1 week out of a year, and he spends you just spend an issue watching the Thing go around and not be the Thing. So he plays poker like a regular guy, he eats hot dogs and watches a ball game like a regular guy, he makes love like a regular guy, and it's profound and it's beautiful. And that's kind of what this friendship parts 1 and 2 are. But anyway, friendship parts 3 and 4. Diana comes to Bruce. She says, listen, the Gentleman has made a request of me and of you. He needs a break. So we're going to take over his vigil for a little bit. He's going to come to the outside. He's going to rest. He's going to talk to his wife. He's going to chill for a bit. And we're going to fight back this like nonstop horde, right? This violent horde. And we're just going to hold vigil the way that he does for us. He's deserved it. So Bruce says, okay. And he goes in. He tells Selena, you know, I'll be back later. Well, the Gentleman comes out, and he groups up with Catwoman. They spend a little bit of time together. You see Bruce and Diana inside like the little battle world area, right? And they're fighting the horde. It's going and going and going. And Catwoman asks the guy, he's like, how long do you think she's like, how long do you think they've been in there? And he says, probably about 8 years. And she realizes that like minutes on the outside world are days, weeks, years in there. And she says, "Oh God, you're going to leave them." Well, Bruce and Diana, in the span that it takes the gentleman like 5, 6 hours to go and talk to his wife and explain to Catwoman what love means to him and all of this, Bruce and Diana are in this world for, I think, a couple 100 years fighting these guys. And these are a pair that have this, also kind of long romantic history. And they're both trying to be good. And they both have loves in their lives, but they're alone, they're hungry, they're hurting, and it would be so easy to find comfort in each other. They don't allow themselves to. There are moments, there are kisses that are stolen, and we don't know quite what else happens. But at the end of it, Bruce gets out. He's been in there forever, and Selena's worried, oh, he's not going to love me anymore, or he will have been with Diana, and it's been too long over there, and it's not going to be the same. All he wants is her. And she says, were you bad in there? And he says, no, but probably not as good as I should have been. And it's this acknowledgement of a minor failing, of maybe those kisses with Diana meant nothing, maybe they meant more, maybe they spent more intimate time together. But this is a guy who is having to battle with these desires, with these human desires. And whereas I think most comic runs would take this, story about them fighting back the Horde and being trapped in time and use it as a device for action or for higher drama, it boils down to this little emotional thing where he's kind of confessing, yeah, I may have stolen a moment. And that's the accumulation of this big, crazy, creative situation that they found themselves in. That's what all of this Bruce and Catwoman stuff boils down to. And it's great. Their relationship doesn't end quite the way I think that King wanted it to. And you veer off into, after it comes to kind of an unceremonious end, Bruce is left at the altar by Selena, who has been pushed by others to believe if you let him be happy, he won't be able to be Batman, and then it will be blood on your hands and his. So she makes the decision for both of them. Won't get totally into it. This is going long enough already. But after this kind of break happens, you reach this really dank, devastating, hateful place, right? Bruce kind of lets go of the reins a little bit, lets go of the control that he has on himself. A series of young women are killed, found dead in similar ways that have to do with freezing, I believe, on the back of their spinal column, something like that, something that wasn't found by the coroners but is found by Bruce. And he goes after Mr. Freeze, the obvious candidate, right? And he beats him violently. Brutally does he beat him. Goes way past where he normally would. I think he concusses Freeze. And Freeze finds himself on trial, as does Batman. Bruce puts himself in as a juror, so kind of tries to prove the point. We have to hold Batman to the same standards as everyone else. He's talking against himself in this court case. It's really quite fascinating. Trying to, I think, convince himself more than anyone that he is still human, that he still has to play by the rules. But anyways, it gets into this really dark, murky place that reminds me a lot of latter-day Hunter x Hunter, specifically Chimera Ant Hunter x Hunter, where you go... It's a lot more whiplash in King's Batman than it is in Togashi's opus, Hunter x Hunter, because with Hunter x Hunter, there's kind of a build-up. You start happy and having fun, and it's like, oh, there's action. It's just like Batman, right? There's action, and there's intrigue, and there's mystery, and there's this colorful supporting cast. Kite Man, right? Kite Man's a big part of this run. All these kind of happy comic booky things fall by the way, and it becomes bleak for a while. This happens in Hunter x Hunter as well. It gets dark quick, and when it does, it fully commits and talks about the nature of violence, the value of life. King is looking at a lot of these same ideas here, but it goes, as soon as the wedding falls off the rails, so does Bruce's sanity. Anyways, really different part of the book, one that I enjoyed as much as I enjoyed the romance. And again, I could see, going back to the beginning, how the month-to-month reading of this could be dissatisfying for people. But as someone sitting and going just beginning to end, the amount of variation, not just in the way that these stories are being delivered or in the little detours or, anything, the amount of variation that you get in tone and theme as well, and kind of continuing to deal with thoughts of suicide and of loss and of parenthood and of being someone's child and what all of that means, being someone's husband, the responsibility that you take on. He keeps talking about these same things, but you're seeing him do it with very different language and with very different shadow work and different amounts of blood and levity. And the whole thing, to me, just a feast. I think that it keeps the read interesting. I think it keeps it varied. I blew through this 85 issues and 4 annuals. A couple crossovers in there as well you can read or you cannot, up to you. But I found that this dark period, I was never slipping on the Catwoman stuff. I could have read hundreds of issues of that romance. I thought it was brilliantly executed. But there was kind of a switch when he, switches. You as a reader, you're like, oh, we're doing this violent thing now, and it's pedal to the metal. And now we're really dealing with, he gets sent through these scarecrow-induced series of nightmares. You're seeing characters like Professor Pig and the Question pop up. It gets a little more gothic. Constantine is there for an issue. John Constantine, it's super fun. The Joker's an ongoing presence in all of this. It's like, it gets real nitty gritty. And then kind of pulls up at the end. You've got this triumphant final arc, or what should be a triumph, but it's not quite. So I think 2 things I want to touch on before going off here. One, about at the midpoint, and this is following, I'll go ahead and show one of my favorite stories in this, the war of jokes and riddles. It's kind of where you see Joker. It's an amazing Joker story. It's actually something I'll make a total own video on, not just have it be part of this because I think it warrants it. I'm trying to keep Kite Man out of the conversations too, but I do want to make just a Kite Man video, maybe an edited one, maybe just a War of Jokes and Riddles video. But there's these couple issues where Joker is kind of pushing Selina away from Bruce and saying, I've got to kill you because if he's not, Batman, then what am I? And I've got to be the one. It's really wonderful. I recommend this. This is a high point of the series for me, right? This is right before the wedding. Read this if you're going to read anything. It's a few issues. Joker kills like 6 people in a chapel. Batman shows up to stop him. Batman's knocked unconscious. Catwoman comes to save him. She and Joker kind of equalize each other, take themselves out of the equation, and then it's just them having these conversations. And you're contending with the fact that they've been allies before, and what does that relationship mean? They're kind of jovial, they're familiar, it's different, it's fresh, it's sexy, it's exciting. Loved it. But this is a high point for me. My other high point for me comes at a part of the series that I don't really like that much. Not don't like, but it's not to the high points, and that's the conclusory arc, City of Bane. I think this is where King wanted the run to go to 100 issues and was told, hey buddy, wrap it up. But people were not with this. Like I said, this was not a popular thing at all. But this part in City of Bane I really love. Alright, so here's the setting. Gotham has been totally taken over by Bane. For the past 20 issues or so, you've been seeing him collect allies and use them as resources. Penguin switches sides, rats him out to Bruce. Bruce finds out that people that he thought were allies weren't. And Bane, who's been building up this crazy thing, is able to get Batman out of the situation by making him lose control. Turns out the end of the wedding was something that he devised, right? Emotionally break the Bat by dangling happiness in front of his face with Catwoman, and then at the last moment, up and out of there, right? So Batman makes himself vulnerable, gets beat, gets taken out of the city by his father. That's a whole thing. We won't talk about Thomas Wayne now, but that is a City of Bane thing. Really good villain. I liked it. This is a story of father and sons. The Thomas Wayne stuff's good. Listen to me on that. But you see Gotham totally overtaken by Bane. Hit the liquid death. Super villains operating as police officers, right? Total flipping of a script. Harvey Bullock is in Gotham Central, in GCPD Central, with his shirt off, painted like a clown. He's got like a smiley face on his belly. It's a whole thing. It's hilarious. I loved it. But the whole status quo has been flipped. It's become its own sovereign nation, kind of like the island that Bane was controlling at the beginning of the story, where the U.S. and the Justice League can't go into it. They can't breach it. They can't broach it. It's off limits. And Bane sets a few rules, right? No one comes in or out. Gotham can stop being the black eye on this country. Leave it. I'm going to run it my way. It's going to be fine. You do your own thing. I'll do mine. Oh, yeah, last word. If any member of the Bat family steps a foot in this city, we got hostages. Right? We got hostages, and we're not afraid to 86 them. It'll be done, right? One person doesn't listen. And it's a character that I wish we actually saw more of in this book because, hey, sorry. I love all the Robins. I think two of them are probably among my favorite comic characters of all time. One of them is Dick Grayson, the GOAT. The other one, Damian Wayne. I'm a huge Damian fan. I think he's badass. I love how he's written. Interesting, fascinating. I've got back here one of my favorite runs, Batman and Robin, Grant Morrison. Those two characters together, Dick and Damian, perfect. Damian Wayne, I wish, spent more time in the focus of this story, especially because it is a lot about fathers and sons. But he's not. It's okay. He gets this moment where Bat family is, excommunicado. Do not step foot in Gotham City. Damian, lone wolf, invades the city. Cuts a path straight to the heart of it, right? Goes through all these villains, unafraid, doing the right thing, as his father would have. Almost reminds me of Bruce's actions at the end of Zero Year by Scott Snyder, illustrated by Greg Capullo. Also kind of reminds me of Robin's actions in Batman the Cult by Jim Starlin, which is amazing book. One of my favorite Bat books, The Cult, if you haven't read it. 4 issues, 50 pages each. What do you have to lose? Beautiful art, beautiful colors. But Damian hits the ground, cuts through. It's badass. He's moving like SEAL Team 6, right? But like not like actual human monsters. It's really cool. Gets to the end, and his arrogance goes up against Bane. Is beaten. Is captured. I think he fights Thomas too. Wakes up. His eyes are opening. He hears, "Don't do it, not in front of the boy." You turn the page. Alfred, his head in Bane's hands, has his neck snapped. He's killed. Now, Alfred is another one of those top 5, top 10 comic characters of all time. The beating heart of every Bat story. If it's not him, it's Jim Gordon. Depending on the situation that you're in. Alfred taken away. It's a moment of great tragedy. It's something that I think could have been expanded on more in this run. I understand, again, editorial issues, and it's something people have harped on. Maybe not wrapped up the best way in this book, but what this leads to, what this decision by King or editorial or whoever, how he executes it, leads so beautifully into this final letter that Alfred leaves Bruce. And then you get in Tom Taylor's Nightwing the letter that Alfred left Dick, and that's a whole other thing, and the money. But it's just this moment that I think totally perfectly caps off the series, right? That has been this weird outsider Tom King book. People are speaking like real people the way that they do in King books. They stutter, they stammer, they fall over themselves. I find it intoxicating. It's the exact style of writing that I like. It's immediate. You've had all these Tom King moments, and to finish this run with this moment that I think everyone thought would have been retconned already. We'd already have Alfred back. No, been half a decade and change. Still dead. To me, it really helps cement this as something that is historically relevant within the span of comics. And I think it was very unpopular at the time, and I understand why, but reading that issue of Damien storming the city and then seeing how it ends and seeing what's come after, what both King and other creatives have been able to do with the loss of Alfred. I think it's just the perfect cherry on top of this run. I'm happy with it. I loved it. I liked it. I have been going for a while on this, and it hasn't really been focused. It's a little late night classic talk, man. That's what you gotta do sometimes. If you've stuck with me, thank you. Maybe you've been falling asleep, need something to listen to. That's kind of how I am. That's what I'd like. Making these little discussion videos, and I just like to talk about it, you know? So, Batman, Tom King, final thoughts. It's a hard 10 for me. I know that this is a book that people really dislike, but as like a me thing, I couldn't have been happier with it. It's up there with some of my favorite stories now. Again, there are so many different little jokes and themes and motifs and discussions being had here that he never really loses interest in, and they keep building, and there are these brief glimpses of beauty and togetherness and hope. And on the other side, there's carnage and the fear of death and human fallibility, anxiety, you know, a lot of self-doubt. I'll make more videos on this run. These are kind of initial thoughts and impressions, just getting them out there. But yeah, Tom King, Batman, hey, one of the GOATs. That's all that's really got to be said. If you're interested in maybe checking this book out, I would recommend making sure that you've read some of Tom King's other stuff. I think it's really rewarding as a fan of his to, instead of reading like a 12, 9, 15 issue, you know, comic book like a Mr. Miracle, like a Supergirl, like an Omega Men, like a Human Target, like a Heroes in Crisis. I mean, I could go on and on. The dude's got hits. It's really rewarding once you've gotten a familiarity with his voice to then have this behemoth of a project, right? 85 issues. And to my mind, each of them, except those two fucking Monster Men, Night of the whatever, all those issues are worth cherishing and reading and going back through and really looking at. Look at the paneling in this. Look at the way that speech bubbles are used. Look at how things flow. Pay attention to phrases that get repeated, right? There's this football player that just can't... This quarterback that can't make a throw to save his life. They talk about him every 5th issue, and dude's always failing, and he stays on the team. It's weird, it's wonderful, it's Tom King, so I'd recommend reading King's other stuff so you have a taste for it already, know if you're going to like this or if it's a non-starter, right? And then I would also recommend having a solid to strong connection to and understanding of the Batman mythos. So, you know, make sure you've read your essentials. You've read Long Halloween, Killing Joke. Year 1 is very important for this. Scott Snyder's run, I would recommend at least Court of Owls and Zero Year. I think are really important. Then, you know, try books like The Cult. Read Nightfall. That's, I think that would behoove you. Anyway, just check out these essentials, get a grasp of the character, and then dive in. If you're anything like me, you're going to be really happy with this. So, hey, thank you for joining me here on Instant Classics for a little late night rambling about comics and whatever else. I hope again that you are in good health and in high spirits, my friends. I will catch you on the flip.